First, artists have not been going to villages. Their concentration is in urban areas, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, but maybe they have moved some of the small towns. In the villages, I would say those who have dared to go and do paint in the villages like me have given some of the communities in the countryside an opportunity to know that their own have the capacity to do that. Otherwise, previously, it's the European visiting artists sponsored by, National Geographics, Rockefeller, and there was the other one, the Ford Foundation. Then those would go out in some kind of research on culture, so they would photograph, make videos, and then artists paint. Now, for me, my experience that wherever I went, they had never seen an African doing a portrait from life. But most likely they had seen a European who had visited and done something like that in some places. Because I remember in the 60s there was a gentleman, I don't remember whether he was Italian or American, who went around making portraits using crayons, the oil crayons. And he had an exhibition here in Kampala and another one in Nairobi. Yes.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. Then maybe at this moment we can do right from the start.
From introductions.
Oh, yes.
You are
Karungi nyote kayinza kudda. We'll never talk about those things again.
Professor Khan, I think I want to ask you to moderate this interview.
Ate ngome nene eri wano ate ng'oleeta kakandi.
Do you know that Nelson Mandela taught Maloba sculpture?
He did. I see it in the Independence Monument.
So you can see. But anyway, I think we are privileged to have you, Mr. Kateete, who trained here and lived here for a while before you migrated to Kenya in 1980, you say?
Yes, 1980.
Yes, and found yourself, discovered yourself, I would say, in Kenya. Kenya provided the suitable environment that enabled you to flourish. You're not a struggling artist, you're a flourishing artist, I would say. And that is very gratifying for any person hoping to be an artist. And you're such an exemplary artist, for those who want to succeed. So thank you for returning home and exhibiting here, so we can be inspired and learn from you and so on. But also to take us back in time and talk about yourself and the times you were here as a student and how the mood, political, social, cultural mood at the time helped you to, to become what you really wanted to become. Because sometimes adversities can help you to fight against all odds and say, no, I have to make it. And yes, it did. So the story is that, please share with us your experience as an artist from the time you realized you wanted to become an artist through the journey as a student here and how you ended up in Nairobi as a freelance artist.
Well, usually the question is, how did you become an artist? Or when did you start loving and doing art? Like I've told others before, most artists usually attribute their creativity to the mother who was making baskets and making mats and so on. And initially I thought that was the case with me, but after some thought and trying to recall my life as a child, I discovered that the real foundation of my creativity started much earlier on than just my mom making mats and baskets. And I believe whatever I went through could be partially the reason why most children become creative and become artists. Because it's known that an artist becomes an artist because it's the only way he can express himself when he's denied the vocal expression. Because in our culture, traditionally, there was that element of, thou shalt not talk when elders are talking. Why are you making noise? You're frightened off, and then after swallowing your words, you sit back and start imagining yourself having a conversation with an invisible partner. Or you create a game. If you don't have siblings, then you create games that also include an invisible partner in the game you're playing. Personally, after reflections over my past as a child, I believe my creativity and imagination started possibly when I was 2.5 years old.
2.5. Do you remember?
I remember.
Yourself as a 2-year-old?
I remember the day my mother took me out of my home and took me to the roadside to go and visit my grandmother. I thought it was a normal occurrence where, the lady decides to take the child to go and stay with a relative. But after some reflections, I realized that that was the time when my father married a second wife. And I think my mother wanted to get me away to save me from the dramas, the domestic dramas that followed. So she took me on the first journey when I experienced the first trip in a bus. Many of you will never experience because it was quite a journey. The Arabian British bus was something to behold.
It was called Arabian.
Arabian. So I was born in Rukonge, so we go to Kayabwe. The bus was coming, steaming, and the radiator, it was all constantly open, so the water would sometimes pop out. So it stopped, and the engine, of course, was in the open. It was not on the interior, and the conductor or the guy, the turnboy, whatever they called him, was all constantly seated next to the engine with a jerrycan.
Was that one owned by Sulaiman Serwanga?
I don't know. Later on, I think that must have been the British bus company, which became KBS and UBS and so on and so forth. So we boarded this bus with my mom, and I saw it as the land was disappearing, passing by the bus. Then we go to a place called Uganda, that hill. The bus is going up, and somehow it fails to go up the hill. So all passengers had to alight and walk. Of course, they reached the top before the bus was going.
The jeer.
And the fellow is busy cooling the radiator. So for me, that observation alone of what the happenings, fascinated me. Wondering how come a vehicle can be so slow and people can be so fast. So we reached the top, they all jump in, and then we go boom, 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 going through where, of course, there was Mpugwe and all those hills again, the same drama, until we reached where we were going. And then we had to go to my grandmother's place where she was staying with relatives who had just settled there. The family belonged to a gentleman who was a driver to the first bishop of Uganda, Bishop Kabana. So he had retired, and surprisingly, he died just a couple of years back, 114. So we arrived in this new settlement which was really virgin, a lot of forests, a lot of bushes. And my mom, after the present arrays, we eat had the lunch and whatever excuses herself and say, okay, yeah, I'm coming back. For the first time, I knew, I'd never been told, I'm a small kid, I knew she was lying. So as she walked away, I cried. My grandmother came back with a sweet, those sweets that used to have
a stick.
Ridges.
Yes, I remember that.
And bit of a piece, and gave me. But my mom had left a shilling. And she amused me by saying, "Tujja kugimenyamu, tuguleyo omugati." Kugimenyamu, you know. I do not understand how she's going to break that shilling. For she meant getting change, okay?
So essentially tujja gimenyamu, literally meaning we shall break the shilling into parts.
It meant getting change, seeking for the change. So then, after knowing that my mom is not going to come back, I sort of surrendered to being under the care of my grandmother. My grandmother's life and me was full of drama, because I remember where we had settled, there was a spring just coming out of the ground, just a couple of meters. As a child, I enjoyed being sent for water when the food was burning. You know, I got down and fetch the water, come and put it in the table. Seeing the first huge bird, to me, a secretary bird was, it was a huge bird, it was a giant. In fact, the day I saw it, I told the same story for another 2 weeks. Then there was the interaction with the children of the gentleman who was our host. And I remember everything was going okay until one day when I was having a bath. One of the kids notoriously came with a cup, with very hot water, and poured it on my head instead of the basin. It was the most painful experience as a kid. Then I remembered my mother. So you see, the thoughts, the whatever, and creating, remembering the good times you have had and kind of stuff. So from there, with all those experiences, testing a rhino heart, liver for the first time, because the gentleman, having been a driver, he was privileged to have a gun, so he used to go hunting. So they went to kill the rhino and they brought the parts, and they said, aphrodisiac stuff. We should also test the liver so that we become men at a later stage. So I left the year Mutesa was exiled.
That is 1966, right?
That was 1954.
Earlier.
So my mom comes to pick me and she tells
You mean when he was exiled by Sakohen?
Yeah, he came back in 55.
That was 1952.
It was 52 or 50 something. But came back in 55.
Oh yes.
So
around June.
Comes and talks about
57, 55.
the experiences of walking through crossroads, the spears, because they brought the East African rifles to quell the rebellious Baganda, to protest the exiling of their king. And they also brought
the boycott.
Yeah, the boycott, yes.
Boycott?
Yes.
The Baganda called it boycott.
And that's when they also invented the new term, Batakabu. They made, instead of greetings, Batakabu, saying we are together, Then she narrated her experience of how she was working with some people and they found this Maasai, but because it was a big group, did not do anything. Because somehow they were instructed to do something frightening, to instill fear among the natives. So she talked about that and whatever. Then I also started imagining how, these Maasais look like and whatever. So we leave, but looks like, politics at home had not gotten any better. So I end up again with my grandmother, with another relative, just one village from my home village. And I was, the host, Mr. Grigori, I don't remember the Ugandan name, was a very good carpenter. He was making beds, using the adze and the chisels that he had made locally with a blacksmith. And I enjoyed seeing him making those joints, making dowels and fixing the bed. And of course people would come and buy and putting the palm, the stalks, I don't remember the word in Uganda, but they used to do that.
Virago. Virago is from a banana fiber.
So that made me start realizing that I can use my hands. So at age 7, I go back to my parents' home, and I surprised everybody when I went to cut some branches from a tree we used to call cassia, and I made my own bed. Of course, my brother, because there were 2 brothers, but one was never there. He had also been going to stay with some relatives. He was felt very bad because my grandmother was laughing at him, said, "Look, a small kid can make his own bed and you're just playing." So I started the manipulation of material to come up with something. So the story of my mother making a mat came at a stage where after she had gone to join those women's groups, she was taught how to make mats, baskets, and then she started. I loved the colors she introduced in the mat, the new styles, the new designs. And then I one day went for a church, whatever church service, Corpus Christi, call it Procession Sunday, where the college students or the teacher training students had decorated the path. They had decorated the path with the colored chalk and the charcoal and
we used to do that.
And the brick dust,
yes.
Ashes. It was fascinating. In fact, I did not even listen to the prayer. I was just, as we were walking along, I was just looking at these beautiful patterns. Sometimes I think I would be disappointed because there were these girls who were throwing flowers, petals on the path as the procession went. So I go home. My grandfather had tried to build a house using bricks. So they had all been piled there, some half fired, so they had patches of black, some have turned brown, and then the white and whatever, because we had a beautiful clay back home. So I started crushing those bricks, made my own powder with charcoal and whatever, and I started the patterns. That was the beginning of the life of an artist.
Multiple sources, multiple experiences.
I made a bed, then now the designs. Then I joined P1, primary 1. I didn't go to nursery school, so...
They were not so common.
They were not there. In the countryside, a good number had gotten the privilege. Most of them, my classmates, when I joined high school. But for me, from the village at age 9 to class 1 in Nkozi.
9 years of age?
Yes. In fact, I was 8. It was 8. That was 58.
That's when you are able to get this hand across to touch the other ear.
I was not touching. That's why they made me repeat. So I had to go back to class 1 in 59. And I had not money to read the way it was meant to be. So I go to that school, Nkozi, which was also the parish, and Nkozi is a distribution center for Christian artifacts like statues and the illustrations of the cross that were carved and so on. So there was this store which was full of those statues, some broken, others still whole. I used to go and look at during break or lunchtime. Instead of playing, I would go and look at them. It fascinated me. Then rain season came, I think that was pre the Nino of 60. So I would go to the bush, like when I'm taking the goats to be grazed, and see the fresh clay that had been put on top of the old anthill. Then I'll just sit on top and use that clay to start making what? Objects. Remember, I've made a bed, made designs, now I'm into modeling. Of course, the fascination was I would leave my form there, and then the next day I'd find when the termites have added on something, and then I would do some more on top. So we're competitively increasing the height of the anthill. So that went on for some time. I remember a teacher who was from Bunyoro, who was our teacher in P2. He complained of some of us, me in particular, drawing instead of listening to whatever he was talking about. So he said, so I continued drawing. Then after my confirmation in class 3, that was 1961, I transferred to a school which had been built on land donated by my grandfather, closer home. One, because I was still small, and doing 5 kilometers to and fro was a bit tough. Actually, the Nino was in 1961, because I remember at one time we were coming from school, the rivers are full to the brim, fish has migrated from the lake, you could see the tilapia and whatever, the insoles. So at one time we were caught by the rain halfway between the river, the Kase and the school in Kozi. It was so cold, so we discovered that the water in the river was warm, so we stripped and
naked.
We were not swimming, we were just trying to be warm in the water. Until when it stopped, some elders came around and they threatened to whip us, so we took off with our clothes under our armpits, dressed somewhere in the bushes, and came home. It was a year that make us see how nature, transforms, the landscape from one form to another, because all depressions were full of water. My father lost a whole property he had acquired for his third wife to the lake, which marked her departure as well. So I joined Nabusanke in P4. Then teachers from that school, because the teacher trained college, I remember we used to call them Vanomolo, which made, I think, normal education.
Normal actually, from bush schools, normal schools, then regular schools. I mean, that...
Abanomolo.
Yes, and my grandfather was trained as a teacher for normal schools. Nomolo.
So,
yes,
the Vanomolo came in practice in our school. And they could hardly draw. But these were small girls. Remember, they used to, from P6 to the teacher training, these were small girls, so they don't know how to draw. And they discovered there was a boy here who is very good at drawing, whatever.
Like a boy meaning small boy?
Yeah, me. So I helped them make drawings on their charts, whatever, the demonstration charts. And one teacher who is still alive, Mrs. Kayua, proclaims, I'm a Jakwera artist. And that statement...
Meaning this boy is going to be a great artist?
Yeah, stuck in my head. So, I remember at one time being challenged by another boy after being praised. He finds me by, standing next to a window, comes with his book and starts drawing, and then looks at me, and I looked at him, and then told me, That was the last time he ever grew.
Translated, I'm better than you.
better than you. So I looked at him and I said, well,
tell me more about kukuba. What is this in Uganda word, kukuba? Why
to draw.
Kukuba is to beat. Why is it used for?
Now drawing, okusiiga, okukuba kwali kwaki ne kalaamu, okusiiga ne langi. Okubya ekifaananyi, omusajja ya mukubi wa bifaananyi nnyo. Akati okukuba okwo kijja ne mu kuba essimu. Nti bw'okuba essimu ensonga lwaki abalalu twabasanga nnyo ku muti gwaki gw'essimu n'akuba omuti n'atandika okukola ki okusendinga message, hello, hey, ojja kujja Kampala. Egamba it was sort of acting or illustrating the process of making a call. But now in this case, okukuba ekifaananyi, I don't think I have a proper explanation because I found that statement or that whatever in existence. So I leave that school, I joined Gombe, which was sponsored by the Uganda government, very well furnished. All the mentors were there, but we were just junior 1 and 2, and 3 for the girls.
You're talking about junior school.
Junior 1, 2, and 3. 3 was for girls who were aspiring to become nurses or become teachers, because they would give them an extra class to be a little bit more maybe more prepared, maybe speak better English, to be communicative and so on. So I joined that school. I remember I was living in Bogomba and studying in Butambala, so I used to travel about 15 kilometers. In that school, they were also teaching art. There was an Indian gentleman who was teaching art. With
Indian gentleman now?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, he was a teacher, teaching art, but he had his philosophy of the master's education, where you have to beat the way he has told you. And since Butambala was a Muslim-dominated place, and Uganda and the Saza and the Gomba, he was also conscious of the fact that Islam does not promote realism. So he was very much opposed to me drawing faces and whatever. So he used to harass me. So I never got a good mark for my art. But I didn't last long, because after 1 year I became sickly. I was taken back home, and my father found me a place at Bwere. It's a school which was also next to.
Now, before you go to Bwere, this is very interesting what your Indian teacher is offering here.
Yes.
It's a total... It's totally opposed to what I would have encouraged.
Yes.
I would never encourage you master, then you begin literally showing your student, novice, how to make. I would want, never wanted her student to copy.
For me, I think I can attribute to the Islamic influence in that region. Somehow I think that the teacher must have been a Muslim, who also didn't want to offend the culture.
The Asian teacher?
Yes. It might have been Muslim and didn't want to offend the Muslims who were the predominant whatever natives of Butambala.
Would that explain why we don't have a lot of this school hasn't produced many Muslim artists. Does that idea that Islam is not...
if they had come here and also die-hard Muslims, they would have stuck to designs. But they can also draw birds and animals, but not human beings.
Okay.
Landscapes that they do, according to the word.
Okay. Okay, proceed with the next school.
Wele, it was also, there was a primary and then the junior, which was separate. So that was the year when junior 1 and 2 we did start the same exam to end.
They're phasing out.
They phase out the junior section. And so we're all being drilled to pass the exams. But one day, I don't remember what I did. I was given a punishment to go and clean the store. So I went and cleaned, and to my surprise, there was the traditional powder paints, those small bottles. Actually, the cans of maybe 4 liters or whatever. They were there, unutilized, and they were vanilla papers. So I did my punishment with joy, because after cleaning up, I tore up the vanilla papers, made containers, filled paints, all the colors, and I saw also brushes. I took about 3 of them.
How do you know they will be useful in making art? Had you used them before?
Look, me, it was an adventure. And I knew since I had painted before, in the other school where the Indian was trying to tell me. Now, it was my chance to sample all the colors. So, somehow I managed to smuggle out the paints and the brushes, took them home. Now, the beginning of a painter.
Or the continuation of a painter from the imaginations of the earlier.
There was the bed.
For sculpture, modeling.
There was the bed construction, assembling, and then there was the modeling.
Then the anthill soil.
There was the powder, the designs, copper crystal on the ground. Then the clay modeling, and now real painting. So I took home and I started painting on my own. If whatever I painted, there was no guide, of course. My parents knew nothing about art. My father was a B3 school dropout. My mother was a
B3 school graduate.
My mother struggled to go to school. My grandfather could not hear of it. She disappeared from home for about 3 months. And she went and was in the convent at Nkozi. Then one day when she went to fetch firewood, a stick knocked her leg, and the wound became septic. It could not heal. Nuns had run out of options, so they take her home. I think she disturbed them where she came from. My grandfather boasted that, so a poor woman.
Meaning I've frustrated your...
She spiritually frustrated him into that. So she
into
goes
abandoning the convent.
Yeah. Shortly she gets married to the Form 3 graduate. Class 3 graduate. So they didn't have, apart from the little knowledge, because later on she taught herself how to write. She could write a letter. So they didn't have a clue on whatever I was doing. And then I had an uncle who was a little bit here. I think he had gone up to class 7, class 6 or junior 2, who had this British, the colonial attitude towards art. He said, bakole ebifaananyi baana basiru. Mwana akula ebifaananyi takula kubeera doctor, takula kubeera engineer. So
translated,
an artist is regarded as the lowest of the food chain, and has no respect, and art will not sell, will not get anything, will not make a living out of it. So he used to harass me, and this uncle is the one who I've honored for having driven my mother to hospital to deliver me. So he used to taunt me. So I graduate from P8, P7, whatever, and fortunately I got admitted to Namibia College.
Senior 1?
Senior 1.
1960?
Yes, 67.
Yes.
Because I did my junior 1 and 2 during the year when the kingdoms were abolished. So 67 I joined Namibia College. Then of course I struggled because when you have done no nursery school, you have had no nursery school education. There are so many things you don't have, self-expression and whatever. And then in the village settings, teachers used to write on the board and you copy. I've joined Namibia College, there's dictation. Of course, these are the kids who had gone through schools that had initiated that at an earlier stage. We're very comfortable. I struggled with that. But then when he went to the art room, it was a guy who had already gained a little experience. So I was already a good art student. And I remember...
Meaning a good experience both in the formal education and outside the formal.
So I had tested, used the clay, I had designed, I had used paint. So when I was there, I was almost at par with these young people who had gone to these lucrative Kampala schools. But there's one thing they had not experienced. Clay, I was ahead. So we do the art. Then from one, I think there was, there used to be at the annual float exhibitions. At Kolo, the vehicles would go, whatever kind of stuff. So the housemaster had noticed that I was good, so me and a few other small boys, we were 2 Africans and 2 Indians, we participated.
Indians again doing art?
Yes. These were students, because the school had Indians, we had a Chad, we had a Korean and a few others. So we participated in that, modeling and so on. And in the process, a primary teacher called Mpinga got to know that I was good at drawing, and he wanted to earn money from art. Remember, now occasionally there are exhibitions by international artists.
In Uganda, Kampala.
At the same time...
Where would they be? Normal Gallery?
Yeah, Normal Gallery, yes. At the same time, there are artists like Mr. Norbert Kagwa, was a teacher, our lecturer at Chambogo. Then there was Mugarula Mchibi, was a young man who had just come into the field. And then there was a new phenomenon. A young Ugandan lady had broken the barrier, and she started exhibiting. There was a lot of publicity about her.
Who was that? Okay.
So would you consider Trizamsoke actually pioneer woman artist in Uganda? I mean, high flying.
She was.
There was of course Mary Wilson and others, but
she was
Triza who was really.
She's the one who received all the credit, but there was Mrs. Karuga.
Yes.
Who who promoted the use of banana fibers to make art, but then got married to a Kenyan lecturer, and I think she moved to Kenya. So there were those exhibitions. Meanwhile, when those exhibitions now were ongoing, problems in DRC, the war in Katanga, and so on, a lot of artists, let me just call them street artists, ran into Uganda from DRC. So while the exhibitions were going on, the lead Congolese called Moto, who was very good at palette knife, whatever, and a few other Congolese who were very good at palette knife, for them, they were taking their paintings to the Normal Gallery and whatever exhibitions that were organized locally. But the other would-be street artists, they came and started duplicating and making copies of their paintings. One would walk around with about 20 of them, going through the estates where they are Europeans and the elite Ugandan, selling their paintings at 15 shillings.
How were they received by the art school? This one, Magotro Art School. Remember the art school was struggling to accommodate in Uganda, 1966. So he's thrown out of here. He goes to National Theatre. He puts up an exhibition there. He's a spirit of man, and now we wish to know this art school, which had gotten used and comfortable with the high art. How did it receive these street people?
I've got to start from the other end in order to come to what you're talking about. Because when I came here, they had already established two forms of art: pop art and traditional serious art. And they never used to waste time telling us that pop art has no place here. No batiks. And again, even portraiture was categorized as pop art. So
portraiture.
And you know, to somebody to be there doing portraits and so on, they wanted us to do that, but at the same time follow their doctrine.
What was their doctrine?
Each artist or each art lecturer had their styles, particularly in the painting department, and they were like preachers, or like the priests, the way they preach the story of Jesus and so on, Christianity. So there was that introduction to painting through the teaching of history, art history, Leonard W, the whatever, and then come to the Renaissance, the Reformation and kind of stuff, until it came to Picasso.
Picasso was also mentioned.
Now Picasso became the ideal choice because he created an art that sort of redefines the artist from the common painter to a philosopher, an artist who is doing art that talks to people.
So here at the art school, Picasso is received as a philosopher.
Yeah, and one with the ideal art that appeals to the elite. Okay, the thinkers, academic whatever, academic thinkers who would like to be thinking and looking at this not so real thing, to give them, I don't know, to sort of spark their thinking, not start analyzing what the guy is portraying, because it's not real, they will start, it was that mentality.
Who is the biggest supporter of that? Because if you look at the work done by Cecil Todd, for example, the Bunsen principle, it has nothing to do with the Picasso, or at least the Picasso being
that Picasso
promoted. Who was the biggest I think proponent of this Picassorian philosophy?
I remember in one of Matty's teachings, he's one who told us the biggest.
Matty.
The story
Severino Matty.
Severino Matty is the one who talked about Picasso and then African art. And we are shown lots of examples of artifacts from DRC, the Bakuba, the Baluba, and whatever. And then you go to Benin, the Benin bronzes and whatever. And then, of course, the Nigerians, what? Those abstracts.
The abstract from Nigeria.
Mati was, in that regard, a lecturer in history of art, but not in studio practice.
Yeah, in history of art, but at the same time, was very vocal in instilling that idea of modern art, which is abstract, that kind of thing. But Mr. Silvio had his style, which was neither realistic nor was it abstract, which stood in another category. Possibly would at that time would have labeled it as being naive art, and there was that. Preaching of African art as being either primitive, naive, or abstract, as per Picasso's discovery.
One of the surviving paintings by Severino Matty, The Village Massacre, has probably the same, not exactly abstract, maybe not exactly naive, but somewhere there in between. In other words, when you look at that village, apart from the drama, the attack on the village, the massacre, the rampaging soldiers, they are not so apart. Cerullo and Mati, am I right?
Yeah, they were not for part, but you see, Cerullo's art had sort of captured the interest of the art lovers and lovers of African art. So for him, he had established his style. You can even see in the statues, you know, that it was not, it was real, let me just put it that way, but not the kind of reality the society would like to see. But us as students, we suddenly realized that he himself was a contributor to what he was doing. Because the hands in the statues and in the paintings were duplications of his hand. Actually, it was like himself transformed into other images.
Did you respect that approach, that style? Did you think he was something that you would
somehow we got to learn that in many cases, some artists have got an element of themselves in what they do, which I believe is justified, because my analysis of art, I find it being based to each one's mental state. The autistics see things their own way, and they draw them their own way. Somebody who is on drugs will portray images that are seen in the hallucination state as they are, and somebody who is sober, unless he's being indoctrinated into doing it the other way, will do things that are real to his sight.
Okay.
So for us, we looked at Cerullo and we used to look at his paintings and say, oh yes, now that is Cerullo himself in his art.
Very interesting. Okay, we redirected away from the Congolese coming here, painting with palette knives.
Yeah, so the Congolese, Mr. Moto was like the highly trained, and there were these others, the strugglers, who were walking through the streets. And for certain reasons, the bar owners found they could make their bars more beautiful. So they would hire them, pay them 100 shillings. I think when I went to Kenya, I found they were being paid about 350 shillings to do a whole wall. Then somehow the local artists, many of us, we thought maybe I could paint. And I believe that could have inspired Mr. Mpima I talked about, to also see if we can put up an exhibition, even if the painting sells 50 shillings or 70, because I think he used to put 70 or 80. At least he would make the difference, because he used to pay me 25.
What time would that be? 68?
69. Now,
you were still at Namiriango?
Namiriango College. Now, from to Mr. Olek, the late Olek, was then the art teacher. He comes with a piece of paper from some organization in Morocco, which was saying that, there's a competition, and students from colleges and high school should participate. First prize, $3,000.
Wow. Which time was this?
1968.
68. That was big money.
68. The second prize was, I don't remember how much it was. Then we participated. Even some students who were doing their A-levels, they participated. So we forgot.
But I mean, that surprises me, because they did not need permission from the advocate. So anatomy, perspective, the color theory, and so on.
We did.
Who insisted that is really what art should be, academic art.
We did that, but for certain reasons, they preferred the distorted images. It seemed, not because it was publicly told to us, they preferred images that were a bit distorted, not appear to be over-realistic.
But I mean, that surprises me, because they did not need permission from the advocate. So anatomy, perspective, the color theory and so on.
We did
Who insisted that that is really what art should be, academic art.
We did that, but for certain reasons, they preferred the distorted images much more than I mean, they seemed, not because it was publicly told to us, they preferred images that were a bit distorted, not to appear to be over realistic.
And also don't forget that we have just entered 1968-69, but he's not in university yet. So maybe let's go to that 1969. We are now getting into the phase of the competition, international competition, not yet here. So the actors who would have had these ideas that we're talking about were probably not here by the time he joined. Yeah.
Because even Sergio came as a student assistant.
Yeah.
And became a lecturer. We start? So,
now we are entering the exhibition.
Yeah.
No, the competition.
$69.
$3,000 was something.
69 results come back.
Of the competition.
Of the competition. We're at an assembly, and the principal announces, one of our students won first prize gold medal from the competition.
Wow.
Mr. Kateete. Ooh. I waited for $3,000, never came.
What happened?
The school got a replica of my medal, and I think the $3,000 could have been maybe given to the school in terms of materials.
Materials of $3,000 in 1969.
Because I never got an explanation. As a young man, this guy from the village, so we lacked the self-esteem. We lacked I lacked the capacity to claim my prize. So I became the golden boy. I got my gold medal. I was proud of it. And then with the other teachers, Mrs. Kaiwa's pronunciation in my head, I knew I'm going to become an artist. And we had already learned that there's an entrance to the School of Fine Art if you do very well in Form 4. So I paid little attention to many subjects and gave a lot of attention to my art. So I became an artist, and I knew I would be one. So I started painting, drawing, whatever. In fact, that's when I even had the courage to paint the human figure instead of drawing. In fact, in my exams in Form 4, I did not draw.
So you wouldn't start by sketching using pencil. You'd right away begin painting.
Something different.
I think he also does. Yeah. Professor Choni also begins straight away painting things.
So I started painting, and it was fantastic, Later on, I was to be told by Mr. Norbert Kagbo when he came back from Malaysia, where they did the mark, he said, "Oh, by the way, you are one of the top 9 students over the Commonwealth, Oh, he really made me feel like, okay, I had my dream of coming to the School of Fine Art was nearly shattered when your uncle forgot to come and collect the entrance.
Who is this? Sorry, we missed the...
My uncle, actually he is one of those who inspired me, and I knew I wanted to be an artist because my uncle, Tom Ziwa, was an artist himself.
Come again?
Thomas
Ziwa.
He was here as a student up to 1968, I think.
Yeah, because he came after Mr. Olek, 69. In fact, he's the one who gave me my gold medal, but after Mr. Olek had left. So, Mr. Ziwa forgot to come and collect the paper.
Oh.
So, A day before the exam, I remind him, and he rushed on his bike, got the papers, I started the exam in a hurry, whatever. And then I hoped, I said, okay, I think this time I'll go. Of course, my fellow students were not feeling so nice about this idea that for me I don't have to do A level. So when there was the news that there were leakages in the exams.
Exams for art?
The general exams, all level exams. There was a near riot where the children of the rich were said to have participated in buying exams. And I was not spared because we were friends with these young men. Based on the fact that I used to earn, so I always had more money than
Besides that gold medal piece that made you famous, did you used to make art and sell? Did you earn from it?
And whom did you sell to?
Mr. Mpinga is the one who used to pay me to make his paintings that he used to exhibit and sell as his own.
This is all interesting.
So I would earn 150 shillings, maybe 75. I remember I'm earning all that. The children of the rich are given 100 shillings as pocket money. So I was rich. So I buy myself the best shirt.
Who would be buying these paintings from Mr. Mpima? You don't know? You had no idea where he exhibited them?
In fact, in any case, I knew that I would never get there to claim that I'm the one. So,
was it a common practice, or this was a one-off between you and your teacher?
It's the only thing I know how that happened.
How would other people react knowing that Mr. Mpima was buying of?
Did they know?
Like, how would they have responded? Was it like unethical, or?
I think it was not the society had not regarded the art as being a very important aspect of people's lives. So I was earning a living,
And the artists?
I don't know whether the artists ever got to me. I don't think they ever did.
But it's surprising that the way you're explaining that the society had a low regard for art, and yet you were richer than the rich children of the rich men.
Yeah, I was, and we became friends.
Yes.
So that's how I survived. I took care of myself. I had all the amenities. I had my own coil. I was buying my own powdered milk, so sugar and all kind of stuff. I even buy bread.
Yes. Okay, so you are continuing. So you have
I've done the exams.
The exams, and there were these leakages. How did you get out of those? Were you held back? Were they punishment for?
I don't remember how it was quilled, but I remember where till was it lunchtime or supper? Oh, they have stolen the exam. Whoa! Then a knife just passed my ear.
A knife?
Yes, somebody was aiming at me.
It was that bad?
Then the others ran out. So for me, actually I was in shock. But then eventually things went down. But there's this anger of him when he's going to University Street,
So it was so much privilege for one to get from...
Something it was unheard of, and here he was. I didn't even start the exam.
Your aptitude test?
Yes. So I survived the knife. Whatever happened was quilled, and we finished our Form 4. Then I went home. So my parents asked me, "Oh, that when you're waiting for your exams, what are you trying to do?" I said, "I want to do my art." My mom says, "You cannot do it in a village. I don't think it's conducive." So Dad said, "What would you like to do?" I said, "Well, if you can buy me paints, then I think I'll try and do whatever I want to do. My father gave me 125 shillings, I had calculated it so. Then my mom offered to take me to a relative who was our work at the airport in Entebbe. So I went, stayed there, painted as I lived there, not in practicing, perfecting my art, my skill. But there's a small detail that I'm not tell you about how art saved me, because I earned. And I bought myself shirts and whatever. But now, Form 4, 1970, January, February, around that time you're supposed to pay examination fees. My uncle was supposed to come and cover my cost. 2 days from time, the deadline was nowhere to be seen. Earlier on, I had made a mosaic using banana fibers, an image I called the Tempest, very beautifully made. And I had kept it with my brothers who were staying in Deva. So I leave the school desperate to find my uncle so that he can pay my examination fees. I come to Kampala and I find he has gone to Barara to look for business because he was working for an Indian who was making garments. I get desperate. I go to my brothers, pick up my mosaic, go to a relative who was working at Lago to see if he can buy it from me so I can go and pay my fees. He was earning 200 shillings a month. You can imagine him parting about 150 shillings. It was impossible. So I went to Chambo. I don't remember whether I walked all the way. I had some pocket money for the other money. Went to Father McKee's house because I had known him. He was then the Superior General of the Mir Hill Father, the Superior for East Africa. He was the Regional Superior General. So I approached him, I said, I phoned him, it was lunchtime, he comes in, young man, what do you want? I said, I'm desperate, I have an issue. I'm supposed to pay my examination fees, and the person who's supposed to cover that is nowhere to be seen. And I'm wondering if, sir, Father, you can buy this, my art, so that I can go and pay my examination fee. He looks at it, he liked it, went back into the house, wrote a letter, gave it to me, and I went to the Medium College. My fees were paid.
Oh, wow. So I want to reflect on what happened before you take that decision to go to Father. So you take breakfast and you're like, what if I take this? Or did you discuss this with anyone? How did this idea cross your mind?
I remembered that when we did those floats, in fact we won first prize, second prize, 78, 79, 69, yeah, in Amiland College, 68, 69. He used to treat us, take us for movies, gave us gifts like pens. So after failing to get the 50 from the relative, I remembered that this priest loves art. Let me go and try. It was my last option.
The other thing is that generally the teaching of art in Uganda, and maybe now it is shifting a little bit, it's not about teaching kids to make art and sell it. Maybe your teacher could have had you paint and then he sells, but look, even had to take off your name and put his. Generally it is having kids making art for the fun of it and for the expression of it. What about you?
Our teachers never did that.
They never taught you to do art and sell it?
Actually, teaching was, I don't know how it is right now, but because the teacher would walk into the art room. Oh, today the topic is still life. He has already said the object and walks out. Today it's what? Nature. Today is composition and gives the topics. So 3 topics, you choose from one of those topics. And I had this habit of waiting for everyone else to choose. And I've chosen the most difficult. So they never engaged us in any kind of commercial, neither did.
So there was a fine distinction between commercial art and fine art.
So, but Ziwa's brother, who was doing LA, was also doing art. So he used to paint, and he was actually I remember he was preparing for an exhibition. He used to paint very well. I used to go there and see how he was painting. So it could have given some inspiration to my being an artist. But it's Mr. Mpinga who made me, he benefited and made also benefit from my work, my little skill I had. So
you've gone back to Namiryango, school fees are paid.
Yeah. Then I finish the exams, I go home, my dad gives me 125 shillings, I buy watercolor paints, brushes, and a book.
Actually, watercolor or powder color?
Watercolor paints, the tubes, the small tubes. Because they were always about 16 tubes, different colors. I started with Mr. Mr. Muyinda, who was related to my mother. So I paint and then the results come. They were not very nice except my art. So I come to check here and I am not
admitted. For what? For art now? Why was that? Because the relevant documents had not been collected by your teacher, or?
The only remedial or mediocre explanation to that is that it so happened that out of 9 students who were admitted, almost 5 were from Chitovo. So the slot for students from other schools used to be very small. And remember, initially, there was a slot for Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia, and maybe Sudan. So the numbers from other schools used to be very minimal. And the highest percentage used to be from Kitovu. If not 3, 4, or 5. Now, why I failed, I don't know. Why they did not take me, I don't know.
But this is after senior 4.
Yes. After senior 4. So I miss out on that. Then I go back to Father Maki. I talked to him about it. Said, okay, let me try and see if I can fit you in Jambogo. Then it was a grade 5 teacher training school. But I lacked the combination to be admitted. He said, yeah, we know it's very good, but because of that and that. So he said, okay, come and stay with me. Stay for 10 months. Stay here, not say give me the period. I'll give you 20 shillings to feed yourself. That was a lot of money though. Because I would even save 5 shillings a week. I would buy meat and buy a full bunch of matoke.
Staying with him in his house?
No, I was staying in the servants' quarters, cooking for myself and doing art. And Mr. Norbert Kagwa would come in regularly to give me some tips here and there. So I was there for 10 months. Since the opportunities had not come up, I had to leave. I went and stayed with my uncle in Indeba. Then one day, I don't know how I was watching TV, I saw a Mr. Serwawe. Serwawe was an artist, but did a lot of silk screen printing. He was based in Mukono. He had given a painting to
Mikono Bishop Taka.
So he had given a painting to Idi Amin, and it was in the papers and whatever. And I said, maybe I could also.
Idi Amin, the president of Uganda. So this is around 1971.
1971. I said, maybe I could also do that. That was 71, 72. So I went to the UBC. I managed to get some pictures
of President Amin.
President Amin. Went home. I collected the banana fibers, a lot of them from my mother's plantation, and I embarked on making a portrait of Idi Amin in banana fibers, which was very good. I walked into the Ministry of Culture and I requested that if they could facilitate my meeting with the president. Then Mr. Kakoma, the composer of the Ugandan
national anthem,
is the one who receives me and looks at me and said, my son, we'll give it to the president, but he will thank you and go away. Why don't we make your life a little bit easier. As the ministry, we can buy this from you. And they gave me a generous 1,000 shillings.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I got a check which I cashed in Central Bank. I did not go to another bank, Central Bank. Walked out very rich and very protective of my
Pocket.
leaves over 100 each. Went to Wilson now. It's now what is now the Wilma Street. I went to the shop and talked like a rich man.
Immediately.
Yeah, I talked like a rich man. I wanted the most expensive material for my mother's garments.
Oh, wow. Why your mother?
Yes.
My father inherited my hard expensive shirt. So
But also you're angry that he acquired another wife and another family.
No, that was my mother also. Yeah, actually, that wife was also there. And by that time, she was still also. So there were two wives, and we were not very friendly. So I bought my mom the most expensive garments material with all the.
What was the most expensive garments material by then?
240,000.
I mean, what was it called? Bula?
No, I don't remember what material it is. I think the Indian cheated me. He knew he was selling it, a naive fellow.
So you walk in there and you say, what is the most expensive material for garments? Oh my goodness.
I paid the 240, they cut the material 6 meters, they put the Mudalizo, they go to the Kikoi, and whatever.
The Shtambala.
Put it together.
Did they also put Muarume?
I don't remember, but yeah, I went to Bata and bought a shoe with a Kakondo.
Oh.
My mom was jazzed. She said, how can I wear this? So I ended up giving the shoe to someone else.
Where was that butter? There is a butter in one of the paintings
There was
of the
many butter.
mini butter.
Mini
Price.
The crossroad, the Mulumu, and the one day they're already coming to one day.
Yeah.
But I think there was another butter up. That's why I bought that shoe. So I took everything to my mother. She was so happy, jazzed, She had never imagined. So I come home in Deba. I'm sleeping and looking at the ceiling. I said, the fellows in the ministry, they bought my work, but they didn't buy my what?
Brain.
My brain. I went and bought another board. It was plywood, and I embarked on another mosaic of Amen. This time different. It was a composition which would have gotten me killed if I told him the actual meaning of my mosaic, because I made the figure of him looking up, scared, and with a tank behind, firing away.
Tank? Which period is this?
72. Yeah. Which, according to my interpretation, it's the guns that brought him as the guns that will take him out, that kind of thing. But I didn't give those details. So I walk into the president's office this time. I didn't go to the Ministry of Culture. The chief of protocol appreciates what I've done. Said that is beautiful. Actually, it was beautiful. Said, just put it there. When the president comes, I'll show it to him. In case he likes it, we'll call you. I walk home. I walked all the way from Parliament.
All you mean what? Not by phone, because phones were very...
I was supposed to go and check.
Oh, you would check periodically?
Periodically.
Okay.
In fact, they said they can come the day after tomorrow. And I'm sleeping. I said, what a fool. I must be. This guy is going to look for promotion. He'll give the gift, he'll be promoted, and that will be the story.
And you had already been warned?
Yes. At 8, I was the first fellow on the door. As they opened, I was the first inside. Hey, Okolachiwano, what have you come? The president has not come. Said, I don't want you to give it to him now because there's a mistake I made there. Let me go and rectify it. I walk out with my...
How accessible was the office then? You literally just walk in and out anytime?
I know the guy became a demon.
Later,
whatever, we demonized him. There was a lot of freedom. You could walk into a president's office, there was no scare. 72. So, as I'm walking on Parliamentary Avenue, I met one of Kabaka Mtebi's grandparents. Mr. Kalemera, who I had met earlier at Father McKee's place. Then he greets me, said, "What are you doing? What are you holding?" I said, "Oh, it's a work of art. Can we have a look at this?" And I said, "Okay, you can look." So we got a friend of his, was Mr. Magova, who was then the head of the UNESCO offices here. So I rap.
Meaning, sure, let's have a look, son.
Let's have a look. Hey, look at this. Oh, wow, this is beautiful. I said, "Now, what exactly do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I thought I would meet the president, give it to him as a present." Mr. Magua looks at it and picks up the phone. Calls Princess Bagaya, who was also most eager to see what I've done. So I go back to the president's office. Mr. Sebi looks up expecting me to give it to him. And
Mr. Sebi is the protocol gentleman.
Yes. He's the one who had promised to.
Yeah. Whom you had told that you were taking it for
retired chiefs. I enter and sit down, and he patiently waits for me to say, "Here, I brought it." I was surprised to see a lady coming, a secretary coming down. I said, "Kateete aliwa?"
Meaning, who is Kateete?
She was a roving ambassador then. She had her own special office within the president's office. So I'm up at her office. Now, she was very smart because she had previously gone to the States, and I think she had attended some conferences. And in the event of her visit, there was possibly some kind of function where they were shown the importance of building schools, special schools for talented children. I was the ideal person to use as an example of students that need that facility. So she organizes a cabinet meeting. Oh, the cream of the professors, whatever, Chibejinja, all those fellows. She made her presentation, and at the end of it all, she brings out the example of the person who can benefit. And I make my presentation to President Idi Amin, who was happy, very jovial. From there, we went, had a meal. Of course, photographs were taken. We shared a meal and then walked home proudly. I was very victorious.
You've shaken hands with the President of the Republic.
I was told I could pick, because later on I was told I could pick the photographs from BBC. It was on TV that night.
It was?
Yeah. And the papers. Hey, they see the Mundo, they see their son. So art can take somebody to see the president. Now, that prompted some of my distant relatives and close relatives to encourage those children who are artistic to also
pursue their career.
That gave birth to Judy Kateete. Because when I was doing those things, it was they observing me.
This young man who was recently recruited.
Because we were staying together. And many others, some who have managed to do art here, others have gone elsewhere. So, by virtue of my having visited there, I'm told to go and pick a letter from Mr. Magova's office, which had brought an administration office here in the university. Later on, called here for the interview, which I did, and I passed.
No, look, you still, you are done with senior 4, you are not admitted, you spend 1 year with Father McKee.
So an extra year.
An extra year, and you still don't go to HSC. You did not go to HSC.
I did not. Okay. So
you didn't go to Chambok as well because you didn't have the combination.
Yes. So I bring the letter. I'm invited for the entrance exams, which I did very well, much better than others, because my portfolio was a little bit advanced because of the time I had taken to do my work. But still, out of 7 or 9 students, I think only 4 were from other schools, the rest were from
Why that?
Because
Why that?
Musango had something to do with it.
Hey.
And then Musango taught, I think, the students as if he was teaching them from a higher level, in that he used the language, the artistic language and whatever. Some of the things that were never taught to us in high school. They knew the perspective, they knew monochrome, they did, you know, all those small details. So they came when they already knew knowledge.
They had the visual vocabulary.
They have the visual vocabulary. For us, but we are.
So the exam was oral as well as what kind of?
No,
what
it was practical. I don't remember whether there was anything that we wrote, but what we had to do, figure drawing, how to paint, still life. Yeah. I remember a gentleman who is now thriving in Kenya, doing imitations of the statues. He does fiberglass, called Baraza, who also was among our group. And he did a bit of drama that amazed us, in that he thought that if we copy him, we might do better. So he would be drawing and
hiding what he's doing.
I was not surprised when he was not accepted. So, but now he's making quite a bit of money by selling fiberglass statues to churches, copies. Money to make molds from all the available statues around Kenya.
Okay.
So anyway, I joined the School of Fine Art in 1973.
You're among the four?
Yeah, among the four who are not
from Chitovu.
Who are not privileged to have come through the elite group of the Chitovu Fine Art.
Did the publicity on TV, Mono, the handshake with the president have anything to do with it?
I think first, I performed well in my exam. Two, I don't know who wrote the letter. I don't know who wrote the letter. Now that letter could have had something that no lecturer here or administration could oppose.
It didn't have written by.
It could have been
written by
Mr. Magoba. After my meeting with the president. I don't know whether that is orders from above. But
should have been orders from above.
So I think there was a bit of that weight, because there was a tradition here in the School of Fine Art that no student is allowed to make, to paint or make art for sale. You're not supposed to make commissions. But at the end of my preliminary year, long vacation, Mr. Semboga commissions me to make a statue of Idi Amin, and I do it in the School of Fine Art.
Before you were admitted in the school?
No, he's now here.
After the 2 semesters, the long vacation. I did it here, they took it, and nobody lifted a finger.
What if they lifted it?
Under the circumstances,
They would have disappeared.
I would have been told to leave.
Oh.
Because
the school or what?
Yeah, because there was the unwritten rule that no student should do commercial art.
This gentleman, there's a guy who's doing very art, he sells art in Germany.
Katarikawa?
And I remember the name, I'll tell you, because we were together in the same class.
Oh,
and he was already selling art. He did not survive. They easily told him to.
That is not Tensibe.
Tensibe, yes. He was already selling art through some Benedictine fathers to Germany. So somehow he did not survive.
That is the reason he didn't get a degree.
He never even passed preliminary.
But he was a student here for some time.
1 year.
1 year. Oh, okay. So he was here for 1 year, made commercial stuff, which prevented him from passing the university exams.
Which attracted sanctions.
I don't think it was passing the university exam. It was that commercialization of his work. But now, Kaiwa who was also part of the group,
Pastor here.
the pastor.
Oh, the pastor was also here.
For him,
Was he?
his work was a religiously oriented composition. We tried to make him be secular, and for him it was always spiritualism and kind of stuff. And then he was doing batiks, another discipline that was never allowed. It was prohibited because it's proper art, and he has, it would reflect badly on the school's reputation.
So pop art had a negative stereotype.
Yes.
Well,
so they drop out. Me, I survive, and I continue. But then, there were other complications. But because
Wait a minute, pop art was discouraged, and secondly, selling art was discouraged.
yes.
A combination of the two. So you were in the camp of serious art, but was because you shouldn't have
go down that study.
Yeah. Oh. So
And
what made you really survive? What do you think you attribute your survival to?
That's the question.
That I mean,
that's the question.
Yes.
That goes back to the letter. It's a reflection that has come to my mind that maybe something in that letter prevented them from taking action.
And now here you're talking about.
But now, before you go, let me go back, because if I don't explain the pop art back to a batik mania, Robina Anderson comes to Makerere. I don't know whether she was here or whatever before I joined. And
School of Education.
Yeah, and she's doing her silk screen batiks. And I don't know who else introduces the batik art to the art community or fraternity in Uganda. And people discover that you can make quick money. You can make 10 batiks or 20 batiks in 2 days and make money. And even those who have never had art education, they also join the mill, let me call it that way. So the emergence of experts in batik making of Waswa, Katongole, Lukenge, Mr. Mtiaba, and many other people, which Lumu also joined because he was from here, and a number of others. Lumu moved to Kenya because now the curio shops in Kenya were buying a lot of batiks, and some Ugandans were taking Lukenges, they're also selling their batiks in Kenya because they're selling so easily.
And big numbers.
Yeah, big numbers. You could take 30 batiks and get 3,000 shillings.
Kenya shillings.
Kenya shillings. And I remember Lumu, for him, he got addicted to booze. So the Indians could make an order. He brings about 200. They give him a bit of the money so that he can drink. Then when he's hard up, he comes from the other, and when he's through, then they order for another. Where that made him not bargain a higher price because we were taking advantage of him. Then Pastor Kaiwa also moved to Kenya to try and do batiks, but then he gets involved in the born again fraternity, then becomes religious. He goes for trainings. I think somehow he goes off to the US and whatever. Now he becomes a pastor. Before I joined here, because of my batiks, my collage, Rwanyaga Musoke and the other gentleman, I've forgotten the name, they invited me to go and teach mosaic students at Mengo. I taught there for about, I think just a few months before I came to school.
To teach?
To teach them how to use the bananas to do art.
Which art you actually, I would say, taught yourself?
Yes, I taught myself. Yeah.
And having taught that yourself, could not even practice it here because it was pop art.
I'll come back to that. So Mr. Wanyaga Msoke also was doing batiks. He moves to Dar es Salaam. But before he moves to Dar es Salaam, he had really taken interest in transforming the Lubugo backcloth into a canvas. So he starts the art of using the Lubugo as a canvas, painting on canvas. So I come here, you know, the batik, whatever. Even me, I felt that, you know, batik was cheap for everybody to be doing it. So now that was the second wave, because the other wave of the Congolese didn't last long, because they managed to filter through Uganda into Kenya. And the
Congolese, I remember as a high school student, seeing lots of Congolese, and Musangwese calling them Congolese art, you know, used to use that word. And their art was the serene water,
women carrying things home, or water, or
river sides and seascapes, and you know, with trees painted in a very schematized way. You know, it was a formula for making the trees or something like that.
Yeah, but those are the street artists. But then the elite, the mortals, he had mastered the palette knife, you know, fantastic, you know, because he moved to Kenya, he scribed very well, and then the Kenyan artist community did not take it very, you know, well, so he was forced to go to South Africa. And I think recently, the time when I tried to check, and I saw they were said some of his art pieces were on sale, I think, on auction, but because he had duplicated the value, it's very low. So now, the batik wave sweeps. I mean, the Congolese have gone to Kenya. Now the batik waves is on, and as usual, it moves to Kenya. And they are remaining the Rukenges. Because Katongole had gone to Kenya. So we are here. I don't remember whether that was actual statement, but I remember now who will teach him. I want to use the word. Who will teach the teacher? Because already, in the way I was using the material, I was already ahead of everyone else, and there was no lecturer to guide me in that discipline. So it was pushed aside. So I could not do that. Even portraiture of realism, I think I was also a little bit more refined when it comes to realism and so on, because the art teacher or the painting lecturer, Mr. Celio, had already acquired or generated his style of painting, which was not realism. I did it. It was my major, but in some form of rebellion. I was quite rebellious, and so many other things that I think I remember I told you of the history lectures where I questioned the validity of some of the prehistoric paintings as being prehistoric, because through the readings and through what we have known that some cultures like the San people still paint the same way. So I created an enemy with Mati, an enemy. So it gives me a topic for my dissertation about the influence of Islamic art here in Uganda. In fact, I had a few discussions with him, and for him we thought there was big influence until I told him that we cannot term Arabic culture as being Islam. He says why? I said the Arabic culture, the dress code is a kanzu. And the priests in Rome, and they wear kanzus, the same thing. So the Arabic culture, which was Semitic, which had been there centuries before, is totally different culture. So whether the kanzus came here, it had nothing to do with Islam. It was just an Arabic culture. The only thing that I found to be Islam was the cap, because that was identified as an artifact or an Islamic religious dress.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else are disputed as being Islamic. He wasn't very happy.
Mm-hmm.
Neither was he willing to help me, polish up my what? My because I had gone ahead and had a talk with the then the guy who was in the Islamic department here, who became an ambassador of Uganda to Saudi Arabia. We had a few discussions, and he was also of the same opinion. So
now the image of Amin, the one you picked, was great. It attracted money. You sold it. It threw you into the public domain. People respected you for doing that. There are new ones coming up, the Kateete Judith. It didn't create you as a monster. A lot of the images which have survived from that time of Amin were those of Amin the monster. Now this Amin which you created, was it also created by other artists at the time?
Yeah, they did. I told you about Mr. Serwabi and many others. But now you see, in my case, because it was a function, it was not an ambush. Because the artists who, even today, they paint one painting now, and after 2 months they paint another one, and then go back, and they were still people who were doing that regularly. Me, I only did it once. But now, instead of what you're talking about, the fame and whatever, it just inspired the relatives, people, to not discourage their children from pursuing art. Neither did I, for me, I was soft-spoken. I did lots of talking. Neither did I go around swanking or showing off that, oh, I'm a celebrity, I'm this or whatever. Although once in a while I would wear my medal until the gold mania came around, where everybody was hunting for gold, Mine disappeared. I don't know how it disappeared, but I could not keep it. So I'd not go back to I'd not go back to the president's office, because 4 days after I'd received the letter and I'd gone to see Elizabeth, chases, kicks the Indians out of Uganda. Somehow that's when his popularity started waning, going down. And therefore, me, since I was not in the limelight as such, I sort of stopped being, I was not the focus. In any case, a small boy attracts very little attention than a mature person. So there was no negativity, and then after that, many things happened. And when the doctor who started the Jaja Marina, whatever, the commission, because the Mia did the start here and it was taken there, people hardly knew that I'm the one who did it. Even when we were commissioned by the Ministry of Education to make that big portrait of Amin, we under money. I think it's the students. They didn't feel so bad about the painting itself, but they felt bad because we fronted our, because my friend, may his soul rest in peace, money to get some pieces or materials. Major brought them and we bought, and we all had suits made, bare bottoms. Our friend Vida, for him, he had bought ready-made stuff. He was very classy. So we're around in bell bottoms, in platforms.
Was that in 1975?
That's now 75 years.
The project of the Organization of African Unity.
Yes.
Talk us through some more. Let's talk some more on the art project. Of course, there was the John Amin launching the attack on Bulingugwe, which was captured in, I think, Uganda Times. Him launching, soldiers shooting and going, attack here, shoot there. You know, like how he would attack South Africa and overthrow apartheid. That was a big thing. Of course, Amin taking off. Did he take off the chairmanship of the?
Yeah, he became the chairman.
That was also a big thing. Now let's talk about how that now begin to influence the decisions artists take in producing the image of Amin.
Artists were commissioned to do art, to decorate the hotels, decorate the airport, and the lecturers took the lion's share. In fact, they came here and there.
You mean they took the money, or they took the biggest chunk of the projects, the commission?
And students were also commissioned, but we learned that actually they were not paid. They were promised that if they do their work very well, it will reflect in
the final.
Yeah, the results.
In the results.
Who did that? Mr. Sergio was there, Mr. Professor Kakoza.
Our gang was, that. So the young men, that gang of Mwebe, Romano, whatever, they were given very nice commissions. They did. But they did very beautiful paintings. And somehow, I think the artists felt that at least for the first time they're being recognized as contributors to the life, to the Kenyan whatever the Ugandan, the national beauty and culture. But for us,
who are thinking like that? Amin Dada or the wider population out there?
It was a guy who wanted also these things because
Amin Dada.
Yeah, because I remember one of our classmates, Alex Kinto, was commissioned to make art for the Uganda House in the US, in New York, by Amin's government.
So you could say that Amin was a big patron of Uganda's.
I think he was a patron by default. He would never refuse. So when people suggested to beautify, I think he allowed it. Some of us benefited the way we did. We did the art face, and that's how far we went. We got our money, we got suits. And then we continued living as we saw life changing. In that I never once again thought of doing another portrait of an Ugandan from him or whatever. We were beginning to resent, because of the image that had been portrayed.
So the Amin of 71, 72, where you were?
Yeah, it was a totally
commission, and then the Amin of 78, 79, it was totally different.
Right from 73, it was totally different. Because 73 was still okay until people stepped on his toes. And one of those was Olaroton.
The Greek president.
Yeah, who criticized him for spending on military hardware instead of using the money for progress. And he got annoyed the following day, after a few days, to ban the boom, or whatever to ban the boom was not
the student
the allowances and crack down on the government expenditure on the running of the university Because we used to have 5-course meal.
Wow.
We started eating meat that has been in the cold room, and it was almost rotting, with a lot of water and whatever. Pudding and all those cakes and whatever disappeared.
So Amin was punishing you for this criticism. It was kind of a collective punishment.
It's easy to point the finger at Idi Amin. Very, very easy. But human beings take advantage of situations. We used to have a saying, Tuliram Kavia. I would like to imagine, may God forbid, that the university administration quietly took advantage of Amin's directions and diverted funds from what was supposed to be done to other things.
What about Amin killing and his Amin killing university students because
that was during riots. Now, I've been around, I've been lived under two types of governments, the Kenyan government and here kind of stuff. I would say that promotion in the army or in the police depends on how many cases you solve as a policeman or how many cases you bring. In an army, how much you show that you're protecting the nation.
Mm-hmm.
I believe some of the victims were just victims of individual characters within the army who wanted to show that they are defending and protecting the government. That's my assumption.
It wasn't Amin's state policy
that is my assumption.
To kill university students.
That is my assumption, not the truth. But there were directives. But I know even to presently there are people who abuse the orders from above to fulfill their agenda.
Would that be your reason for making the other assumption?
Yes. So, people got killed because of beautiful girls, and the whole blame was put on Idi Amin. You could not walk into a restaurant in Kampala, a posh restaurant, have a meal and survive being bullied by some major who has walked in and seen you seated with a lovely girl at the table.
Yeah. Honorable Betty Kamia is the current IGG and daughter of one of the majors in Amin's army. I think it was Major Kamia or something like that. She also makes a similar point, yes, that this idea of people driving on the pavements and with the sirens and lights on,
it was never there.
Probably grew more out of this vigilantism of individuals rather than state policy from above.
Yeah. So there was the use of force to get what you want in the name of orders from above. Soldiers, actually, I would say it resulted from the distribution of the Asian properties, where Amin, would walk along, Rumu Street or Kampala, whatever, with a crowd of people, and then he would say,
oh, really?
And then sometimes you are there, they are hitting you, and the one who received the largest, the highest number of rashes on the back, say, hey,
who would be doing such a kind of thing?
No, there was a lot of barbarism of that nature.
So the barbarism is that you want to get the best shop, so you place yourself there, they beat you up so harshly, and then after beating you, and you withstand that beating, they give you the shop.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, the soldiers do not take that kindly, because they are the ones who put Amin in power. And here he is distributing the properties to the civilians. So quietly they took it upon themselves to force people to surrender
How do you respond to those who then accuse you of being an apologist of Amin because you benefited from his route? After all, he shook hands with you and gave you a letter to come to Makerere University.
Now, for me, I don't think the letter had anything to do with all that. But it was the opportunistic nature of the people, because whoever took the soldiers to my home thought that maybe my dad would be killed.
Oh, you mean later?
Yeah, later. And therefore...
Let's speak about that then. So why that? So you are not being attacked for being an apologist. So let's talk about that moment when your home is raided. Why that?
That was 79. So whoever it is must have had an opportunistic.
Let's start on that fateful day.
So the Tanzanians cross River Katonga and they camp in that triangle. Because Kayabu actually is almost like a triangle because it's bordered by 3 rivers, Chimkuta, Kase, and Katonga. So crossing Kibukuta again was tough for to come and confront the Amin soldiers. So they camped in Kayabwe for quite a number of days. Then most people had fled. They had come to Kampala and the other places. My father remained because he wanted to take care of his cattle. He could not flee with it, so he would disappear into the village and then come back. But then, even then, the population was pro-Tanzanian.
They invading Tanzanian People's Defense Forces.
Any victimization as such. But now this guy who was a cattle keeper.
Your dad?
No, the cattle keeper informs the platoon that was there that there is a family here whose children were friends of Idi Amin. So they come to my home.
Why would you consider the family supporting Idi Amin? You had abandoned that by 1973.
My father framed my photograph with the Bagaya and Idi Amin. He displayed it on the wall. And my brother had been in the Air Force. So his photograph was also displayed on
in the military fatigue and
it was just I was a cadet.
You
so
don't remember to put it away?
Yeah, he didn't think it was that serious. For my brother, for him, he had deserted. He had disappeared somewhere in Gomba. They went for him. And he was served in Tanzania for 3 years. Although he had deserted.
So they went for him, meaning the Tanzanian People's Defense Forces and the Uganda National Liberation Army followed him to Gomba, arrested him, and took him back to Tanzania and imprisoned him.
For 3 years. For me, it was the good thinking, or I would call it reasoning, of one of the soldiers taken there that made my father survive
being killed. What were the good reasoning?
He just asked them to look at the child, the boy in the photograph. He said, yeah, he's a small boy. So he asked them, but what's wrong with a talented young man being appreciated by the president of the nation? But still, whoever took them there, for him, he went away very angry because whatever he wanted was not achieved.
Meaning he wanted your father killed,
yes.
And that wasn't achieved.
Yes. So when I was told about it, I was told, please, my son, be careful, it might come for you.
Your father told you?
Yes.
So, but this is 1979.
79, yes.
Yeah, by that time, graduated from Makerere and...
Yeah, they also done...
Between your graduation and that time, what were you continued to make art that was in praise of Amin or criticizing?
Never.
He had quit by 1973.
Never did any art to do with politics.
But okay, do you remember your contemporaries actually making that? That was I mean, or it was never...
I think the only person who could have done that was a guy, I don't remember the name, was it Mugisha or whatever, who did the Kanya, the cotton. All the others were just, you know, I don't know how you people lived under the okay or whatever. I can only speak about myself. That period, it was a bit difficult to do art, although I remember I used to be commissioned to make portraits of people in banana fibers for fundraising in churches and that kind of stuff. But sitting down and paint, there was like an art block whereby, you know, it's like creativity had almost come to a standstill. I had pledged when I went for a pilgrimage to Israel to do a mural to represent Uganda in the nativity, whatever in the nativity, whatever church. I was supposed to do the Annunciation in banana fibers. Materials were bought. I didn't try. I still have, I think, part of the sketch. But I would just look at the plywood I bought and nothing doing. I had all the material, but I could not. I don't know, for some reasons, I could not have the energy.
What were those reasons, though?
I think there was too much pressure and worry and scare, because one of the reasons I was afraid of dying without having had a child. So there was that fear that I'm going to die, and there was a tradition whereby if you die without a child, if you had a house, they would dig the grave in your house, and you know, you would not have an heir, you know. Usually when they declare, they say, oh, you know, there was that, and at the same time the scare of my father. And then having done the statue, and then was living like I was rich on the campus, then you meet some of your friends from the force that has come in, you know, you meet and you don't get a smile. Somebody's looking at you. It's sort of piled onto me in particular. What I know is that my friend Expeditor tried to flee, because I think was also going through the same crisis.
What happened to Mwewe? What's wrong that he did?
He put his staff on a truck, the art he had created and whatever, books and whatever. They never passed Malaba. So
why was he running away?
I think maybe he was also suffering from the same psychological effect.
General Tumwine says that, and I did speak to him, that, and I think it was your...
Yeah, we were together.
That he did, you remember by around that time, the common characterization of Amin was Chijambia, all the things coming up. So that Expeditor Mwewe makes this visual representation of a human, very, very aggressive human being who is busy slashing people. And then the State Research Bureau was able to decode that and say, no, this is way out of the line, and they were looking for him, and then he had to...
Yeah, he tried to flee with all his materials.
I think that was naive then.
Yeah. God knows where it ended up, because the materials never crossed the border. He did. Many of us, like me, you know, when the Tanzanians came, there was that ready food, sugar, blankets, and whatever. Like a green, was it blue or green? that's what I folded, put in a bag. 2 trousers, 2 pairs of shoes, 2 shirts, a towel, toothbrush, and crossed the border on the 24th of August.
1970.
1980.
1980.
And I arrived in Nairobi on the 25th of August.
So the paintings and other forms of art that we know of that actual artists made that we are criticizing, usually would have been made within, as students, because you have the time, you have the materials, probably you got something to say that will, as a result of your experience, and then make art, make money out of it, but just to express yourself. Once you're out of the university, you have graduated, you will never consider making a subject of that sort again.
For me, I did that subject when I was in Nairobi. In fact, I ended up giving that painting to when we came for the peace talks with Lutwa.
1985.
So my protest piece I did in Nairobi.
1985.
1986, 85.
Yeah.
85. Because I remember, we used to contribute, collect our old trousers, shoes, and there's a friend who was a teacher also who had some connections. The one who was collecting the old clothes for the combatants.
So artists ran to Kenya for different reasons. For Leonard Kateete, it was the persecution following the collapse of the Amin regime. For Expedito Mwebe, it was the Amin regime itself and his protest towards it. So these converge now in Kenya. And then they begin supporting the rebellion against Obote. Why that? What had Obote done wrong?
Actually, it was not Obote. Our rebellion, you see, it was widely publicized that Obote did not win the elections. And because of the rebels started by the 27 in the bushes, we knew that people were being punished. People were not living, comfortably, and we used to hear stories of people constantly living, outside, sleeping outside, and they were afraid of being, attacked in their homes. And in one incident, there was a family who were relatives of my wife, with whom we had made an agreement they were going to send us land somewhere around Kampala here. One day when they were in the house, a gang of soldiers entered their home and raped the lady in front of the family. And in the process, she provoked a fight with the soldiers who ended up shooting her. These were some of the traumatizing stories that reached us because it was quite home. It was a relative.
Aren't you worried that it was propaganda? Anti-Obote propaganda?
No, I'm talking about what happened. Now, who did it?
Yes, because there was no witness. People were shot dead.
Yeah, who did it? I could go back to Amin times. Amin soldiers, like I told you about the beating, the grabbing of women and kind of stuff, and the killings of students being perpetrated by those who felt they're doing a service to the state.
The state, yeah.
They also came, another scenario maybe that was never looked at is the Uganda and most people in the South looked at, we had been brainwashed by the colonialists that you don't have to be in the army. If you are learned, you are educated, you can rule the country using the pen, the law. Leave the duty of being the soldiers too. They're more strong, fierce,
warriors from the north.
From the north. And because of that, my people had developed that mentality. That
your people, the Baganda.
That if a son joins the army, you can as well be a dead man.
Yeah, but you know that happened to your brother.
Yeah, so they would even have the ceremony, the funeral, whatever funeral rites, when the guy is still alive. So, who are the Baganda who joined the army? The Baganda who joined the army were the rat tags, or the criminals who have did some serious crimes in the village, and their only cover was to join the army. There were cases of an abused house help, the way people used to abuse the house helps and whatever, and the fellow joins the army. Now he has the gun, he has the power.
So you are saying whereas the North, for example, was contributing to Uganda's army, the best warriors, the Baganda were contributing criminals?
I would say they contributed more criminal soldiers to the army than the rest of the country. Because it always came back. There was an incident where this boy who had been abused, when they were doing the search, he came with a platoon to the home and stood in the sitting room and said,
So he came back saying that I'm back to revenge. And what were the revenge?
Rape.
Right.
In front of the rest of the family.
So you mean this family where you had contracted to buy land?
For that was a different story.
Oh, okay. But are these your stories, or these are stories which you have?
It's not a story. It's a true story, because the son actually were studying together at Namilyango College.
And this was during the time of Amin, or?
No, that was
Obote 2.
Obote 2, yes. And there were cases, even during Amin's time, those thugs who had taken cover in the army are the ones who used to use Kiswahili.
The Baganda thugs?
Yes, to terrorize us. Because they knew their people where they came from are afraid of Kiswahili. They're afraid of the soldiers. So he would come pretending to be talking in Swahili. You, jina yako ni nani? What are you doing? Fanya hii, talk up. Then, everybody would do. And, for me, they used to enjoy seeing that panic. And mind you, they are using simple words. What's your name?
Jina lako nani?
Jina nani? Unafanya nini hapa? Enda huko.
What are you doing here? Go there.
For us, Nkuta, that's what the interpretation we are getting. And in so doing, made them now even more aggressive. So that because now they know they can actually make you lick their boot.
Let me make sure that I get this very clearly. So you are saying that contrary to the popular view that the Kakwa and Nubians and Amin are the ones who persecuted the Baganda, the Langese and the Acholis are the ones who persecuted the Baganda. In fact, it were the Baganda who were persecuting the Baganda.
It was in two ways.
What were the second way?
The Langese and Acholis, when they came back, they had their issue with the Baganda because we are the ones who celebrated when Obote was removed. And actually they were terrorized in the north. I remember one incident when my brother got a job to work at Lira spinning mill. We were taking a walk and we were talking in Uganda. So these young men, they could hear us talking. And there was thunder and it was raining. Then we started to run. They saw us and they fled. They ran. You could see the panic. They thought were going for them. Maybe imagine that we had guns. So when they came back, they also had that, you know. Now the combination of, you know, first it was the other one where terror had to be unleashed in order to control the society, and then the soldiers trying to compensate themselves for the work they did by grabbing the Asian properties back into their hands. Some actually they used to kill to make sure that they take whatever, and then now the psychopath, you know, also went beyond that when taking the beautiful women. So men were killed, not because it was Amin's government that was doing that, but because, you know, they want that woman. That led to the fleeing of Mr. Makonzi and Lydian, who was a student here.
Lydian who?
Lydian, I don't remember the other name. Maybe she became Lydian Tendo. She was a half caste doing ceramics, was very good, and Makonzi's student, but also, you know, some kind of girlfriend. So
Lydian was the girlfriend to Makonzi?
Yes. I think the fellows who threatened him, he fled, and Lydian also fled to Kenya. There are many other cases I know of men who had to go to Kenya and abandon their wives because of the relationship that had been established, and they knew if they had hung around, they would have died.
So the terror, it's like, you know, these days, you know, there's a common saying that
so the
fish rots from the head.
From the head, yeah.
Now, if you know, you can't, of course, detach, I mean, from, if you like, barbarism and like it. So because he was well known for being indisciplined and not ready to listen and reason, people took advantage of that, and those who were not really connected, I mean, in a way, kind of descended on innocent people.
Yeah.
In the name of Amin, when in fact there was no connection whatsoever.
If you get an opportunity to listen to stories from all the countries that have gone through what Uganda went through, you will understand what exactly happens outside Parliament and outside State House and so on. Asegula mirambo. So people, by their loyalty, by pretending to be eliminating opposition.
That is the meaning of Ensegula mirambo.
I could say, I'm trying to explain it in a simplistic way. So somehow, somewhere, if you watched the movie, this one, it's called something Heart, Lionheart. Remember, towards the end of the movie, the prince who had now become king, he had tried to negotiate with the main character in the movie, according to the story, so that the Scottish stop the rebellion against the British Empire, so they can negotiate and whatever. He comes back and his father makes sure that guy is killed. And the third blames the father, said, but father, why did you do? We are going to come into an agreement. I said, oh, my son, now that this has happened, now you are ready to be a king. Because you have killed your what? The nemesis, you know. So now you are in power, you don't have any opposition.
Wow. Yeah, I want us to speak about Leonard Kateete in Kenya now. A Ugandan artist in Kenya, a Kenyan artist because now where he is, probably is carrying a Kenyan passport, or is he a regional East African artist?
I'm an artist. I'm an artist because I advocate for the freedom of an artist to be an artist no matter where you are. I resent this label of African, I'm an African artist.
So you must have enjoyed the recent NAM meeting, non-alignment.
Yeah, if I had participated, yes.
Okay.
You see, there are people who are classed as African artists, okay, African art. And when you present your work, they say, well, Muzungu, you know, you paint like a Muzungu, you are not one of us. And yet, what I advocate is for an artist to be free to do what he wants. Be it abstract, be realism, be it whatever, for as long as that's exactly what you are worth. I've seen people who are saying, oh, I'm a surrealist. How do you become a surrealist? When you're not viewing the objects the way Salvador Dali viewed them after he had taken his marijuana. It's not possible, is it? Mm-hmm. So acting as surrealist without having experienced the effect and the cause of that guy's vision of a watch falling off the table, or
melting,
and the bike rider becoming part of the bike, and the many other distortions that were as a result of the drug he took, to whatever, to give him that illusion. How can you do that? Mm-hmm. See, it's okay if that's what you want to do, but make sure that you do it out of your own creation, other than your own, imagining how he did it. Now you're also trying to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I want the artist not to be encouraged to be a surrealist unless he's ready to partake the cause of that impression.
How then, what about then, so you don't like labels of Ugandan artists or Kenyan artists or African artists. Yes. What about then labels modernist, modern artists, contemporary artists?
Contemporary, I think, includes even the realisms and whatever. But then when it comes to modern, contemporary modern art.
Oh, so you have another category now, contemporary modern art.
Modern art. That's where the promoters or the curators, those who have decided to brand certain artists as contemporary modern artists, come in and they say, you take your a painting of mine, you go to, I think maybe you have been to Banana, you go with your painting. I said, no, for us we don't, he doesn't even want to look at it. This is what we said here.
So you then, how do you characterize your own art? Okay, you want to be an artist. What about, if I want to know from you, how do you frame your art? How do you characterize it? What do you call it?
If you look at my paintings, it's a combination of both realism and, a bit of expressionism or whatever, because some of the images in my painting are not realistic. They seem like they're semi-abstract. Because I put the main real image and then I try to abstract the interpretation of his environment or his lifestyle, like cattle keeping, or like in the first painting there you see that there's somebody driving away the cattle and the gentleman is holding the lady to show that she's mine, cows are ready, or camels are already paid. So for me, I combine both. I would call it, if I wanted to, I would call it contemporary or classic art, or whatever realism. I can call it anything.
Wow.
Yes.
You the choice that you're in Kenya and living in an environment which is about Kenya, and I'm from Uganda, Buganda, you are where you grew up. Must have, what you're doing must have something to do with where you live, what you are absorbing from where you live, in one or the other culture, social or
to tell the truth, I've never bought the idea of becoming an artist doing African art, which would have possibly led to my doing many things that are similar to what everybody else was doing.
Where everybody is.
Yeah, because what most of other artists were doing, because there was the Terrell Soke, giraffes, wildebeest, sort of semi-abstract compositions, of course including the late White who died the other day. Then there were others, Wadu, who did his dreamy, ghostly images. It was Katalikawe who also did his story the way he painted. And there were many others, Personally, I just stuck to the human being I see in my subject, the character in my subject, where I believe, if I'm not wrong, I went beyond what we call the normal portrait.
Normal portrait?
A normal portrait where people, they get them from photographs and, painting you with a smile, that kind of thing. For me, I sort of cultivated this. Actually, after the experiment with the first couples on that old man there, I wanted to capture a character in somebody which I believe is the real person I'm painting. That's why I devised my way of making my painting over a period of 5 or 6 days. And knowing very well that the first day my subject will give me what she thinks or he thinks is what I need.
Wow.
Then the third day, as he's there posing, now his mind drifts back to the things that actually bother him or affect him, whatever. On the third day, that's when I started getting what I wanted, the character, the spirit of my model. Before I go, let me complete. That took me away from the common making portraits to sell, that kind of thing. So did I get influenced by the Kenyan art?
Well,
The whole thing.
Not really Kenyan art, but by the space where you
to tell the truth,
found your refuge and become part of, and also knowing, by the way, that you are a foreigner here, and sometimes not welcome.
But you see, until you put a mirror in front of you, it becomes very difficult to tell yourself that you're smart. Okay? To tell the truth, I will not give you a clear answer. It's the others who have told me to my face that you don't paint like us. You are different. And in fact, I believe my paintings are very different from most of the common Kenyan painters. Has my stay in Kenya affected the way I look at art? No. I think I've withdrawn into myself the way I did when I was young, and that do my work away from, from the artistic crowd, you get it? I rarely go to exhibitions to see what sells so as to affect my line of thought. And when I started doing my project, visiting different tribes, again, I decided that I should go out there and sit with these people in their compounds, see them, share what they eat, you know, and eventually I believe I'll get something out. So, I cannot claim that I was influenced by so and so. Neither can I say because I'm very clever, I'm very smart, I did that. It just happened that I got interested in making a portrait that produces a character that is very close to what my subject is.
How do Kenyan artists generally receive Ugandan artists? Sometimes people are national, so the very way they will ask you for your passport, the very way Ugandans will ask Kenyan for passports. And recently, okay, we are toning down. You probably need a national ID to cross over, and I think now Kenya is also looking around, people not even wanting to, you know, make any formal applications if you are going to stay in Kenya for just a few. So if there are these national tensions where people are defined as Kenyan, others are defined as Ugandan, and there is a passport, there are all these documents, how do Kenyans receive Ugandan artists, and probably how do Ugandan artists receive Kenyan artists?
Ugandan artists in Kenya are like a resource. And I think it's within the artist kind of family where people put up exhibitions and you regularly visit the exhibitions and then you see what sells. And now you say, oh, if that has sold, I think I can also try that. Many imitated Kateete. Tourism is okay.
Kateete never imitated anyone.
They never did, yes.
Okay.
So he was a resource. He was an inspiration, and he provided material for their source of livelihood.
But he was still considered Ugandan, even if he was in Kenya for a long time.
Others did the same, but then when some became a little bit seeming like they are taking the show, they rubbed some shoulders and some had to leave. Personally,
meaning they fought over the market and others had to leave.
Yes, somehow they would fight over the market, not come directly at you, but making sure that the clients don't give you the jobs. For me, I was working clandestine. We call it what? I was working like undercover. I would work, do what I've been given. Okay, there are works that I did not do to sell. In fact, I hardly put up a solo exhibition
in Kenya.
In Kenya,
this is like the one you have here.
I have, yes, the first solo exhibition by me as a person. The other solo exhibition was organized by the National Museums of Kenya, which lasted a year and a half, of my collection from my adventures around Kenya. That exhibition gave me some kind of security in that the artists are not as aggressive as they should have been, because the exhibition, the work that was exhibited was now the property of the Kenyan government. I was celebrated, and therefore there's no way they can say, oh, this guy is bad, let him come go out of here, because I became a national what?
Heritage.
Heritage. But although I was encouraged to become a Kenyan, I specifically told them that I would rather be known as a Ugandan artist living in Kenya and accepted as that, other than now trying to be a Kenyan and later on reminded that, you are hopeless, That's why I discarded your citizenship.
Because they wanted to give you citizenship.
Yeah, they encouraged me to apply for citizenship. But when they were celebrating me, to their surprise, I dressed a kanzu. I went there.
I recognize it as very Ugandan, the kanzu.
Yes. I dressed as a Ugandan. Just to let them know that I'm proud of being here and whatever I've done, but
You come from somewhere.
I'm a Ugandan.
Wow.
That gives me self-respect, and others respect me. With the creation of the foundation, somehow it was not, I mean, we could not get space to launch the foundation. For certain reasons, I could not get it. But it just occurred to the trustees and me that the best place to display my art is where it all started. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
Now, I know we are close to finishing this thing. Everything that you've said so far, many things obviously, would you say this exhibition is an embodiment of the things that you have explained?
The exhibition, yeah, could be that, but it's a summary of my embracing the human being among the many cultures that I've visited. It's my embracing the heritage in its many facets around East Africa, because it's not specifically Kenyan. There are Sudanese, there are Tanzanians, there's an Ethiopian there, and of course Uganda. There's more of Kenya because it's the country that I've visited most from nearest all corners of Kenya, but I would have loved to have gone, and I will possibly, if the foundation raises enough funds, I would like to go around Uganda, go maybe to Sudan, go whatever. Not only me, I mean, I would like to have company, because how far can I go? I would like to have the company of...
I can also see your sticking questionings about your roots as a Catholic, as a Christian, and wanting to domesticate the Bible and seeing Jesus Christ as an international,
universal figure.
Yeah. So that also is part of the vocabulary.
Actually, it's part of the vocabulary because I'm Catholic, yes, and I've done Christian art. Me, I look at the word differently, because when Jesus was preaching about loving your neighbor and doing whatever, he did not say the Catholics love your neighbor. And I remember somewhere St. Paul is preaching and he tells people that you don't have to be circumcised in order to be
Christian.
Because the religious and spirituality is deep inside, not the physical alterations and that kind of stuff. So for me, the word is Christian, but I'm looking at it as an illustration of what we should be doing. I think they do that in ethics rather than in. I think when they do ethics, they talk about the things that are supposed to be regarded as the natural laws, the things you should not do, the things you should do. So my illustration, like here I'm telling the story of Jesus going to Calvary, but in the background I'm talking about the things that are happening in a community, which has nothing to do with Christianity. It has something to do with the morals and the ethics of a community.
From a point of view of Christianity and Catholicism?
I'm using that for the sake of helping the evangelizer to reach out to people. Because see, you don't have to be to go as a good Christian to go and help people in a particular community. I remember there's a priest who became later on a bishop. He was in Tana River. It's a Muslim-dominated place. And apart from his preaching, he was also helping them to make life easy. He bought a truck to transport their goods. He bought a boat to enable them to go along the river. and it was open to everyone. They were doing operations, making people who have suffered from polio to walk properly. They were non-discriminative. They were doing it for everyone. So it was a service that was first, give people to improve their livelihood, irrespective of their faith. Mm-hmm. So it's a question of brotherhood I'm talking about, and sisterhood.
Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having this conversation. It's really been very wonderful speaking to Mr. Leonard Kateete, who joins the art school in the 70s and then allows us to enter that phase, not necessarily from the point of view of characterizing Amin as a villain, but as characterizing Amin as that enigmatic figure who has different sides to him. The good side, which finally fades as the 1973 comes and then descends into this monster, which many have taken on, but which probably is not all that there is about Amin. So it is very, very interesting to learn that from someone who participated in the production of images of the 1970s. It's also interesting to learn that his departure from Uganda is not like those of some of his contemporaries who had to flee from Amin, but instead he flees from the post-Amin. To learn about that as well. So it's been very, very wonderful speaking to Mr. Leonard Kateete. My name is Angelo Kakande. I teach at Margaret Trout School of Industry and Fine Art, and I've been here with Mr. Leonard Kateete, who is in the middle, and at my extreme right is Professor George Chene, who also teaches here at the Margaret Trout School of Industry and Fine Art. And we really have enjoyed this conversation with Mr. Leonard Kateete. And thank you so much for having us and for giving us all your time.
Thank you so much. And I hope we are nice and kind to you, but also not too intrusive at the same time.
Okay, thank you for the welcome, the warm welcome, because as much as I wanted to launch the foundation here, I did not expect what I've gotten. Thank you, just thank you on behalf of those who instilled the artistic discipline, the discipline in me then, and I thank even those, you on behalf of those who along the way helped me to develop into what I am. And thank you on behalf of those who helped me to keep the discipline and be myself as an artist.
Thank you. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Exhibition. We'll be very grateful. Only for the purpose of that teaching.
Another perspective.
Well, how can I refuse?
Well, you could refuse. You are the author.
See, what happened is that people have always made references to so and so, to so and so, and so and so. But now we are telling our own story. Why not?
Thank you. Thank you so much.